Fantasy Football Factory Week 18 for the diehards out there. Season is the regular fantasy season-long fantasy is over. We are going to go over the Sunday slate. I'm with the King of the South, Mintzy. We got Moody on the sticks. And we are, as always, brought to you by DraftKings. If you're looking to up your game day experience, my partner DraftKings have a brand new way to play daily fantasy sports with Pick 6. All new customers who play just $5 are going to get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Use code FANTASY. It's super easy. You just pick at least 2 players to have more or less for a certain stat, more or less than 49.5 rushing yards, more or less than 1.5 passing touchdowns, more or less than half an interception. It's super easy. Lock them in and compete against others for a shot at huge cash prizes. Download DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Use code FANTASY. Only the DraftKings Pick 6 app. The crown is yours. And Mincy, we're going into week 18 of the NFL football season. A lot of guys are getting rested, but a lot of guys have an extra reason to play with incentives. Now, I got a list of guys this week. Let's kind of go over them one by one and where we see them playing out.
Yeah, and first of all, I want to wish everybody a happy New Year.
Yes.
And also, thank you for addressing me as the King of the South still, because I appreciate that, Steven. But we're going to hit these incentives. And also keep in mind, on DraftKings, you can bet the player props. This should be, look at these incentives for over-unders this week, too, because there could be some big opportunities. I got to give Steven some credit since I've been at Barstool. You've always done this incentive thing, week 18. But, man, it's a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's, the NFL is a big business, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on the line. And so I think it heavily influences decisions this week.
Yeah. Over break, I came out with my play of the year, which is the second one I've had. But it was Mike Evans to hit 1,000-plus receiving yards at minus 125. I put it out, I guess, 2 weeks ago. So he was, at that point,
I think he needed like 240, 260, 262 maybe?
Something like that, 262 over the final 3 weeks. But this is a thing, and he's going to be the first guy we go over. It's Mike Evans against the Saints. He needs 85 yards, which is the most important one, to get to 1,000 yards. If he gets to 1,000 yards, that'd be his 11th straight season with 1,000 receiving yards, tying Jerry Rice's all-time record. This is one, obviously close to the Bucs. I've been following this. This was my play of the year a couple of years ago for this reason, to extend this record, which was the rookie record to start a career. I believe Randy Moss had it with 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He broke that with 7. The overall record, so once guys play their rookie years and on, years of 1,000 yards in a row, he is 85 yards from tying that. That has been a big point of emphasis. That was a point of emphasis when they re-signed him in the offseason. That's been a talking point in press conferences over the past 5 weeks. He was asked about it before the season. He's weighed in on multiple times. There were some interesting clips. Tristan Wirfs, offensive lineman, Pro Bowl offensive lineman, just got into the Pro Bowl, was asked about it, and he was like, yeah, the goal is to win, but he needs 85. He's like, we're going to get him the 85 yards next week. It's a major story. Todd Bowles was asked about it. Was like, if we're, the goal is to win, but we also want to get him that. I've been talking to people with the organization. That is a major priority. Winning is the most priority because you win and you're in the playoffs. But this is, I don't want to say it's 1A, but it's a very close second. So the goal is to win and get him 85 yards.
Well, and shout out Mike Evans, because I really feel like, people know he's a superstar. I feel like he doesn't get near the credit he deserves. I mean, when you look at, like you said, tying Jerry Rice's record for 11 straight 1,000-yard years, you know how hard it is to stay healthy in the NFL 11 years in a row? And he's done it with, Jameis Winston and Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield. He's had a bunch of different quarterbacks. And the longevity of it's an unbelievable accomplishment. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about it. And then you also mentioned the goal is to win, but you're going to win when you throw the ball to Mike Evans. Yes. So I kind of feel like the winning and throwing to Evans is correlated. And then you also look at a Saints team where, Marshawn Lattimore had some success against Evans over the years. He's gone. He's in Washington now. The Saints defense is, there's nothing good about it. So even if the Saints key on him, I still think he can get there.
Yeah, so pay attention to this. So he needs 85 yards for the 1,000. He also needs 5 receptions. If he gets both of those, he gets $3 million. That is the most significant incentive this week. So pay attention to those two. His line recently has been 4.5 to 5.5 receptions. I expect it to be over that. I looked last night. His receiving line was like 92.5. So they are aware. The books are aware of the 85-yard record. But here's a sneaky one. 2 touchdowns gets him an extra $666,000. And I want to bring attention to this because this past weekend in a game against Carolina Panthers, the Bucs had the ball. The Bucs scored 48 points, but they had the ball inside the 5-yard line a lot. The first time, Buck Irving got them down, I think, to the 1-yard line or 2-yard line. They threw it to Evans. Interesting on first and goal. Not completely unusual. They did that play a lot. But then later in the game, they got down to the 1 or 2-yard line and threw it to Evans again. Which, okay, the guy's trying to get the record. Every yard helps. But this was 2 plays inside the 2-yard line. And then I see this week, he needs 2 more touchdowns to get $666,000. So my intuition is telling me they were aware of that going into this game. They are also going to try and get him 2 touchdowns this game. I think there's going to be 1 deep ball, and I think there's going to be 1 short yardage play where they're throwing him the fade. That you saw him last week. If you're paying attention, he had a 2-way go pretty much. He faked the fade, went inside and slant. The other one, they just did the fade. Look for Mike Evans to score twice this week. That's going to be big-time plus money. $666,000 on the line. They're playing the Saints. They're 13.5-point favorites. I don't anticipate the Saints trying to win this game, although I do think it'll be closer than people. I don't think this is going to be a 48-14 game.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I've been watching this. What the Saints are trotting out on a week-to-week basis right now is not even like a semblance of an NFL team. I mean, you're talking about a team on offense without your starting quarterback and your top 4 weapons.
Right.
Offensive line's beat up. They can't score. They can't move the ball. And then Tampa and the Saints is, I mean, it's kind of turned into a sneaky little rivalry. There's some bad blood on both sides. And so, I mean, if Tampa gets a chance to run it up, I think they will.
So one thing I would like to call attention to is last year they did play at the end of the season, the Bucs needing to win, and the Saints won.
Yeah, but that was the Saints got hot at the end of the year last year, and everybody was healthy. Yep. I think it's just I mean, I know that happened last year, but like you're dealing with it totally. I mean, the Saints are trotting out Rattler, and without Olave and Shaheed, they don't have any really NFL receivers. I mean, it's bad. No Kamara, no Taysom Hill. I mean, I know that happened last year, and it's a division rivalry game, so you never know.
Yep.
But I mean, I don't know if you saw any of that second half last week in the Raiders-Saints game. I mean, the Saints team looks deader than fried chicken.
Yeah. The Bucs also need to win last year to get in Week 18 against the Panthers. They won 9-0. So I'm not saying this is going to be a major blowout. I don't know if the Bucs will cover the spread. I anticipate it to be close, but I do anticipate Mike Evans having a very good game. Pay attention to that one. Saquon Barkley, we have to talk about. Obviously, I've been linked to Saquon Barkley for quite some time, just due to my horrific take on him being RB13 going into this year and being overrated. He needs 101 yards to break Eric Dickerson's record. Nick Sirianni came out yesterday and said Saquon didn't practice and may rest. I don't think he's officially been ruled out at this point. Would you be surprised, or are you rooting for him to break this record? Do you think they should play him?
I don't think they should play him, and I know that it's the NFL record, but it's also different because the 17 games thing. He got to 2,000 yards in 16 games, which you can never take away from him. Jalen Hurts is already out with a concussion. I know that the factor that they're playing his old team, the Giants, obviously makes this extremely enticing, but they're locked into the 2 seed. Barkley's got a ton of tread on his tires this year. They've been riding him all year, and they don't have a bye, so It seems like a week. I mean, I know it would be awesome if he broke that record, but I think big picture, I would sit him.
Yeah. I hope he plays. I would like to see him break this record just so that horrible take can be immortalized. But, I mean, it is a tough spot because you don't have the bye. I think if you do have the bye, it's a little bit interesting. But also, looking back at the guy's history, he is injury prone, and you don't have that bye, so it does make it a bit harder. So I would understand the situation to sit him.
I mean, they have really used him this year too.
Yeah. One incentive to keep an eye on. This is a bit of a lofty one, but I think this is going to be a big time return as far as value. If you wanted to, not even ladder up, but look at the highest alternate line for this, DeAndre Hopkins. He needs 6 catches and 140 yards and a touchdown for $750,000. Pretty significant bonus. They are going to be starting Carson Wentz, though, and they are going to be resting some starters. I do not know if DeAndre Hopkins is going to be in that mix, but he's got a lot to play for money-wise. That's one to keep an eye on.
Just 6 and 140 is tough with wins against that Denver defense, though.
Yeah, Denver defense that will be playing to win because they need a win and in. Kyler Murray, years one, DeAndre Hopkins, former quarterback, 50-plus rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown for $750,000.
That I love because that gives him incentive to run a little more. That game at home. Yep. San Francisco's so beat up.
Yeah,
they're rolling with Josh Dobbs. I mean, I like that. That's one to look out for. I like that.
Yeah. Derrick Henry. I'm not sure if he's going to play, but he needs 1 touchdown for $500,000.
Well, I think he will play for a little bit while it's a close at the beginning of the game because the Ravens need to win this game to lock up the 3 seed and win the division. Because the Steelers, technically, if the Ravens lost and then the Steelers beat the Bengals, right. Which, I mean, I don't see how the Ravens can lose.
The Ravens are 17.5-point favorites going against a Dorian Thompson-Robinson led.
I think they're saying Zappy might start.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
they said they were going to split.
Okay.
The last I read is they could split, but if Zappy starts, that'd be better than DTR.
I feel like there's a good chance Henry plays like the first quarter and first half till it's the 2 or 3 score game, and then that's it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I like that for $500,000. Get him that touchdown.
He needs 217. He has 1783. He needs 217 for 2,000. But I don't see that being a point of emphasis here.
Yeah. Keep an eye on Malik Neighbors. Right now, he's in a race for the most receptions by a rookie. Right now, he has 104. The rookie record for a wide receiver is 105 by Puka Nacua set last year. But Brock Bowers has 4 more receptions for him. So do we see to throw it back, was it David Robinson or Shaquille O'Neal who needed, a certain amount of points in the last day of the season and went crazy? I think it might have been David Robinson who had 71 points. To win the scoring title. Keep an eye on Malik Neighbors' receptions on Sunday.
That'll be interesting because Quinyon Mitchell will be on him. Has had such a good year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, how long does he play?
Yeah.
That's a good point. And Drew Lock, sneaky, been feeding Neighbors. I mean, Neighbors, that 171 yards, 2 touchdowns last week.
Yep. Geno Smith, this isn't going to pay out too much. 186 yards is needed for him to get to $2 million. Minus 200 yards for him is going to be big time minus money, but if you want to put in a parlay or something like that.
The Rams also are sitting a ton of people. They've got the 3 seed locked. They're starting Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yep.
I don't think you're going to see Kyron Williams or Puka, and I'm sure on defense that could be a factor as well.
Yep, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Courtland Sutton needs 82 receiving yards for $500,000. Significant playing the Chiefs. They need to win. I assume they're going to feed him the ball as well. Tony Pollard needs 83 rushing yards for $250,000, and Tajay Spears currently in concussion protocol.
And Spears is doubtful.
Yep. J.K. Dobbins needs 58 rushing yards for $150,000. It seems like his line will probably be a little north of that, but pay attention to that. And then if you're looking for a parlay piece, Marquez Valdez-Scantling needs 1 touchdown for $250,000. They are expected to be down to the Bucs, but you can pass on the Bucs.
You can. Valdez-Scantling didn't. The snap count wasn't the best. Like watching last week, he wasn't out there as much as I thought he would be.
Interesting. But those are the incentives for Week 18.
I believe Zach Ertz has some too.
It's like 9 catches
and 2 touchdowns.
And because he got a ton of incentives this past weekend. I think he got like $750K for his. I would be surprised if he's a 9 catch guy. But
Dallas is really bad against tight ends.
I mean, they're playing to win. They would like to move up.
Oh yeah, no doubt. The Commanders-Packers, the Commanders with the win go to L.A., and with the loss and a Green Bay win over Chicago, they would have to go to Philly. And I know they just beat Philly in that crazy game, but I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know. I think you'd rather go to L.A.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the slate this weekend. Very weird one. Very weird. And obviously, teams are going to be resting some guys. So some wonky lines. We're going to talk about the Sunday slates. We're going to ignore Cleveland-Pittsburgh, 17.5-point spread, which I mentioned. Cleveland-Baltimore. Cincinnati-Pittsburgh is the Saturday night game, which should be a pretty good game. Both teams looking to win. 1.5-point spread, 48.5 is the total.
The only thing on that one is if Baltimore beats Cleveland, Pittsburgh's locked into the 5 going to Houston.
Okay.
And that game's in front of it. So that could affect Pittsburgh. Be a little careful with Pittsburgh because of that.
Good call. The Sunday night game is going to be a lot of fun. 56.5-point total.
Highest of the year.
Highest of the year. It's not included in this. Minnesota at Detroit for the number 1 seed. Detroit favored by 3. So let's go over the Sunday slate. Some low totals. We got one game that's over 45 points, and that is Carolina and Atlanta. 48.5 point total. Atlanta favored by 7.5. That is the highest projected scoring game of the day. Let's go through the rest. Giants going to Philadelphia. Eagles favored by 2.5. 37.5 point total. Chicago going to Green Bay. Packers favored by 10. 40.5.
Packers, interesting. They are playing for something, but they need a Commanders loss. But I still think you probably are playing starters here.
Yep. New Orleans going to Tampa. Tampa needing a win to get in. Bucks 13.5 point favorites. 43.5 is the total. Washington going to Dallas. 44.5 point total. Washington favored by 4.5 on the road.
That's a sneaky fantasy game. I know Dallas, though, I will say, watching them last week, the no CeeDee Lamb impacts them just tremendously. But games get a little higher scoring in Jerry World. I think there might be some value there.
Yep. Jacksonville going to Indy. Indy favored by 5. 44.5 point total. Indy, horrible loss last weekend, knocking them out of the playoff race.
Yeah, that one's sneaky, though, for fantasy. And keep your eye on the Richardson-Flacco situation right now. Not sure who's going to go yet, but we saw that. I mean, that Colts-Giants game, 45-33, 78 points. That thing actually, I hit a 50-1 parlay in that game.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's a thing to watch for, and we'll get to it in DFS when the pricing comes out. When Joe Flacco starts, Alex Pierce is a dude. He gets a lot of targets and gets the deep shots. And the parlay I hit was Pierce over 60, Neighbors over 80. Pierce was plus 400 touchdown in that game. And, I hit a 50-1 shot on it.
Hell yeah. Houston going to Tennessee. Titans favored by 138.5 is the total.
Houston locked into the 4 seed here already. Yep. Really, really beat up. Just be very mindful. I would avoid Stroud and their top guys.
Yep. Buffalo going to New England. Buffalo nothing to play for right now. They're locked into the 2 seed. 38.5.
New England, Drake May not go. That's a factor. Your boy Antonio Gibson's been getting a lot more run lately. I know that's an old Stephen Shea favorite. The Buffalo side of it, I mean, I think Allen may come play for us. Maybe he plays a series or 2.
Yeah.
But the one thing Buffalo to look out for, Ray Davis, Cook probably not going to get a lot of run. I know that they also have Ty Johnson, who's been a factor in the passing game, but I think Davis could be in line for a cheap DFS start here.
Yep. Gerard Mayo straight up lying last week when he said Ramondre Stevenson would not start, and then he started.
The Patriots thing this year, Vrabel's there's rumors Vrabel wants that job, but they're not sure if they're going to move on from Mayo after a year. But for what they were on defense last year, they've really fallen off. I mean, they've been allowing a lot of points.
Yeah. Kansas City going to Denver. The Chiefs nothing to play for, locked up the number 1 seed. Denver favored by 10.5. They're going to be trying to win, and they're in the playoffs. The total there is 39.5.
Yeah, fantasy-wise, you mentioned the Cortland Sutton thing. This is a tough one to read. I mean, on the Chiefs side, probably going with Piron and Carson Steele, I would think, at running back. I don't think this one's going to be very high scoring, and I actually don't trust Denver laying 10.5 here at all. This is a division game. KC's well coached, and I don't know that Wentz is going to set the world on fire, but I think they can compete. Denver also hadn't beaten KC since 2015, so I don't know. I think this is a spot that probably avoid a lot of it.
Yeah. San Francisco going to Arizona. Arizona favored by 4. 42.5 is the total.
That one, Josh Dobbs going. Purdy's out. Also, Kittle didn't practice. Debo's banged up. I mean, San Francisco don't have much to play for, so watch out who's going to play there.
Ricky Pearsall coming off a career game.
Yeah, Pearsall. And on the Arizona side, look out for Michael Carter. James Conner out with a knee injury, and the Niners have allowed some yards in the running game. And I'm spoiling a lot of my DFS.
Miami going to the Jets. Miami favored by 1. A Miami win and a Denver loss would put them into the playoffs, so they're going to be playing to win, although it looks like Tyler Huntley is going to be starting.
But he actually played well last week against Cleveland. He played really good, and Tyreek Hill had just an insane amount of targets last week.
Seattle going to the Rams. The Rams have said that they're likely going to sit a lot of guys. Seattle favored by 6.5. 38.5 is the total. We got the Chargers going to the Raiders. Chargers favored by 5 here. 41.5 is the total.
Yeah, that one, like you said, you mentioned the J.K. Dobbins incentives.
Yeah.
He's such a great story coming off the multiple knee injuries. I mean, I got to feel like they're going to try to get him.
Yeah. Let's get into the pricing for DFS for the classic Sunday slate. We'll start with quarterbacks. We got Josh Allen at 8,500. Massive drop to Jaden Daniels, 7,800. Jalen Hurts, we don't know if he's going to play at this point, looking unlikely, 7,500. Baker Mayfield, 7,000. Another big drop. Mahomes, 6,600. He's not going to play, actually. Bo Nix, 6,400. Brock Purdy, 62, and it goes down by hundreds after that. You can go all the way down to 4,800 with Snoop Huntley. Mintzy, where are you going on the quarterbacks?
All right, the quarterback situation this week is very interesting, as you said, because the top guys, there's a lot of questions. So I'm watching. All right, I have two guys I'm looking at that are $5,400. Mm-hmm. One of them, Michael Penix, at home against Carolina. We're at a point with this Carolina defense where if they're playing, you just start people against them. I mean, they allow 170 yards rushing a game. Mm-hmm. You saw what Baker did. Their defense is atrocious. This game's got the highest over under the week. I think Penix could have a good game, but the guy I'm going to start if Richardson doesn't play is Joe Flacco. The first game against Jacksonville was a 38-35 game. Flacco started. This game indoors, Flacco, he'll turn it over, but he'll throw for some yards. Jacksonville's defense sucks. So I'm looking at starting Flacco. Basically, my plan is if Flacco is going, I'm starting him, and if he isn't, I'm going with Penix and saving some money.
Moody, who you got on the quarterback front?
I do agree about Penix. I think there's just a chance that he could sling it a little bit in that game against a bad Carolina defense. Baker Mayfield has to be in play here against New Orleans. My concern would be they're up, heavily in the second half and they kind of turn away from the passing game. That's the only thing that worries me about Baker, but I love Baker this week. And then another guy that I'm looking at that is expected to start, and they said that his backup is not going to get any run, is Geno Smith. Geno against the Rams. We've seen the Rams get gashed through the air multiple times this season. I like Geno at 5,500. I think I'm probably going Penix, though, at 5,400. But I do like Geno and Baker as well.
Couple guys keep an eye on. I like Baker, 7,000. To your point, Moody, if they're up, he's going to have done some really good things. He really didn't play much, and actually Kyle Trask came in the fourth quarter last week, but they were up, a gajillion points. And he was the best fantasy quarterback of the day. Fool me once, fool me twice, fool me the 50th time. I'm looking at Caleb Williams at $5,600. Going against the Packers, I think this is a big time. Thomas Brown, I'm sure, knows that this is his last game as coach, but I think that this is a spot where it could be a get-right game for Caleb Williams. Build some momentum going into next year, just because this is it's not looking. Obviously, it hasn't looked good in his rookie year. I think this is a decent spot. Jerry Alexander out for the year. And then Tyler Huntley, $4,800. I think that's pretty good value. That's well under cost. He's the cheapest starting quarterback. He plays well, and, he runs the ball too. So the Miami Dolphins needing a win going against a horrible Jets defense, I'm probably going to go Tyler Huntley. Depending on how everything shakes out with news the rest of the
I have one more to mention, too. Kyler Murray at 6,000. You mentioned the rushing thing with 50 yards and a rushing touchdown.
Yep.
The Niners defense has fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
I think 6,000 is a really good value on him.
Yeah. All right, running backs, top of the market, Saquon Barkley, who at this point has not been ruled out, but looking doubtful to play. $8,600. Bijan Robinson, $8,500. Jonathan Taylor, $8,200. Josh Jacobs, $8,100. Bucky Irving, $7,700. And then it goes down by hundreds pretty much after that. You can go all the way down to like $4,000. Mintzy, who stands out to you in the running back market?
All right. Well, what's interesting this week is there's a ton of value on cheaper guys because they're going to be getting run.
Yep.
The expensive one, he's so expensive. I debated the top two were so expensive, but the matchups are so good. Bijan at home against Carolina. Bijan's really cooked the last 5-6 weeks. Yep. Carolina allows 170 yards rushing a game. I just think the floor with him is very high. I just can't see him not at least having a pretty good game. So I think I'm rolling with him. But also Jonathan Taylor against Jacksonville. Taylor had another big game last week. The Jags are horrible on defense too. So I think you can't go wrong with one of those two guys. It's just the only thing is you got to pay for it.
Yeah. Moody, who do you like in the running back market?
Well, I completely agree on Bijan. I'm either going to go Penix at quarterback or Bijan at running back. I haven't decided. I don't think I'm going to stack those two guys. But Bijan Robinson, the only reason you would stay away from him is that he's $8,500. I think he's going to have a sensational game. Y'all mentioned Ray Davis earlier. I think if he gets a lot of run, he's somebody you have to be paying attention to. Blake Corum is expected to be the starting running back for the Rams against Seattle. I expect him to get a big workload in that game, a chance to show off that he was worth the draft pick last year. I think he's someone you have to consider this week. And then one guy that's very cheap that I want your opinion on this, Steven, because I think I really like him this week. It's Sean Tucker against the Saints. He beat them up in New Orleans the last time they played, went for like over 140 yards. He's only 4K this week. And I personally think it would be foolish of the Buccaneers to put Bucky Irving into too much danger this week. Bucky's already a little beat up, dealing with the shoulder, dealing with the lower body injury as well. I think protecting Bucky and giving Sean Tucker some run in a game that Tampa Bay should win handily makes a lot of sense. I love Sean Tucker at 4K. I think I'm sticking him in my flex.
I think that's a very sharp play. I think Sean Tucker's going to get a lot of work this week. You're right. He had some good success against New Orleans. Bucky Irving is nursing a ton of injuries. I am not expecting, I think Bucky Irving is going to start. I think he's going to get carries early. If this game does get out of hand, which I don't think you can take for granted, but they're going to try and get Mike Evans the ball. I don't know if Bucky Irving is as big of a scoring threat this week. I think they're going to limit Bucky Irving a little bit, as long as the game, goes according to the spread, which, a lot of times it doesn't. But if the game does get out of hand, I would look for Sean Tucker. My only caution with Sean Tucker is if the game is under a 14-point game at half, I don't know you're going to see him a whole lot. If the game does get out of hand, I think you're going to see a lot of Sean Tucker. So it's a risk going with him. But at $4,000, I think he's a very sharp play. I love Blake Corum this week, $5,600. Sean McVay said in pressers he's looking forward to seeing what Blake Corum can do with a really big workload. I am a big Blake Corum guy. I drafted him in season-long fantasy. He did not really get the run I was anticipating this year. I like Blake Corum to have a very big day. And also another guy I want to point out, Tank Bigsby. $5,100. I know ETN got a lot of carries the past couple weeks, but Tank Bigsby, a guy at $5,100 in a game we've mentioned, Indy Jacksonville can get a little loose. So Tank Bigsby is a guy to look out for.
I got two more to look at too on my cheaper guys because I only mentioned the expensive ones. Kenneth Gainwell, $5,600.
Yep.
If Barkley's out, the Giants' run defenses, it's been horrible all year, and so I think he's in line for a big workload. And he also catches the ball at the backfield. And then I mentioned Michael Carter a second ago.
Yep.
With James Conner out, and the Niners are allowing the sixth most, fantasy points to running backs. I think Carter could be a good value at $4,700.
Tyler Algier also not a bad option. I believe he had over 100 yards against Carolina the first time they played. Go ahead, Moody.
Well, by the way, I'm pretty sure Saquon's out. He all but confirmed it yesterday in his press conference or his interview later in the day. So I expect Barkley to not play, which would definitely give Gainwell some value. So expect the majority of those Eagles starters to be sitting out.
Yep. All right, let's go to the receiver market. Puka Nacua tops the market, $8,300. Mike Evans, with all those incentives, $8,000. Nico Collins, $7,800. AJ Brown, who probably won't play, $7,500. Brian Thomas Jr. has been on fire lately, $7,300. Malik Neighbors chasing the rookie record, $7,100. Goes down by hundreds after that. Moody, who do you like in the receiver market?
Well, first and foremost, it has to be Mike Evans. He's been in my lineup for like 6 straight weeks, it feels like. I mean, I've just been playing Mike Evans every single week. He was like 6,800 at one point, maybe 7K, and every week he's getting more expensive. He's 8,000 this week. You guys already mentioned the incentives. I think they're going to try and get him those incentives, and they're going to try and win the game. I love Mike Evans. He is probably my favorite play of the week. He's expensive, but I think he's worth it. Another guy to look at, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He has become the number one receiver in Seattle. He's been sensational week after week. Geno looks his way. It sounds like Seattle's going to start all of their starters against a beat-up Rams secondary. I expect Jackson Smith and Jigba to have a good game. I'd love to find money for Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know that that's going to happen, but he has just been unworldly week after week. His consistency is impressive. And then one other guy that I'm looking at down here is Ray McLeod III against Carolina. Just if I'm going cheap, that may be somebody that I'm going to target. And, I feel like the receiver position is going to be really kind of a crapshoot in some ways. Like, you just don't know what you're getting this week with these other quarterbacks. There is without question going to be some guy way down the list that's going to ball out that nobody has on their radar. It's really one of those weeks where I want to try and find the guys that I think could be consistent, and those are a few guys that I think will be consistent this week.
All right, Mintzy, who do you got? Actually, hold on. Let me talk about Mike Evans for a second again. Mike Evans, $8,000. I think he is a solid play for DFS. That being said, his targets are 5 catches, 85 yards, and then ideally 2 touchdowns. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think there's a good chance. If he doesn't get 2 touchdowns, I don't know that that's going to be the best because I think he has a ceiling. I don't think you're going to see a 200-yard game from Mike Evans. I don't think you're going to see a 150-yard game. I think you could see right around 95, 100 yards and a touchdown. And I would expect that maybe 2 touchdowns. But he's really going to need those 2 touchdowns for it to pay off at $8,000. Otherwise, you're getting a solid performance. So for the money, I don't know if that's going to be fully worth it just in the DFS world. Mintzy, let's go with you on.
All right, I agree on the Evans thing. Don't get me wrong, but I don't have the money. I'm going Brian Thomas Jr. is my number 1. He's 7,300. He's going over 100 and a touchdown like every single week.
Yep.
Indy's defense is just, I saw what Malik Neighbors did to them with Drew Lock last week. I think this game could be sneaky high scoring, and he is, I know Mac Jones gets a lot of hate, but he knows how to throw the ball to Thomas, and so Thomas is going to be my number 1. The other guys I'm looking at, look, Drake London went off Sunday night. Seems like him and Penix. I was worried last week because he was coming off a little of a hamstring thing, and he looked really good. So I'm all about him at 6,500 against the Carolina team that, as we've said, can't stop anybody. And then my number 3 is dependent on the Flacco thing, but I'm rolling Pierce again at 5,000 if Flacco starts. When you looked at, I watched that whole game last week as that parlay. Josh Downs was invincible in that game.
Yep.
And it was Pittman and Pierce. And then the thing is Pierce, they took 3 or 4 deep shots to him.
Yep.
And so 5,000, you're looking at a real big upside. I mean, he had way over 100 yards and a touchdown last week. So he's my number 3.
Yeah. Guys, I pointed out Brian Thomas Jr. I think Mike Evans potentially is a play if you don't think any guys are going to go super crazy. And again, it's a total crapshoot. If I'm looking at cheaper guys, one guy I'm taking a look at is Jalen Coker on the Panthers. I know he's been banged up recently, but this is a game against Atlanta that could be a little bit higher scoring. It's the highest projected total of the week at I believe it was 48.5.
48, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one I would look at. Also, John Mechie III, $4,000. They're likely going to be playing a lot of backups for most of this game. He's been playing pretty well lately. He's one I'd consider at $4,000 or where is he? John Mechie, $4,000, and Ricky Pierce saw coming off a big game, $4,100 in the game. They're probably going to play a lot of backups.
Yeah, the Dobbs thing is my only problem there.
Yeah, but I mean I guess that's true. All right, tight ends. Brock Bowers, rookie record for receptions, $6,600. Looking to potentially extend that. Trey McBride, $6,500. We saw him get into the end zone this week. George Kittle may or may not play, $6,000. Jonnu Smith, $5,800. Travis Kelce, $5,300. Not sure he's going to play. Hunter Henry, $4,300, and then it goes down by hundreds after that. Mintzy, who are you playing on the tight end market?
I'm going with Zach Ertz at 4,000. Coming off that big game, Dallas is really bad against the tight ends. Games in Jerry World get a little higher scoring.
Yep.
You mentioned the incentives are probably a little out of reach, but I think him reaching the end zone is very, very possible. And one of his incentives is 2 touchdowns. If he scores an early touchdown, he scored 2 last week. I think Ertz at 4,000 is my call because love Bowers, love McBride, but those prices are just getting so high now, way over $6K.
Yep.
And then I don't trust Jonnu Smith with Huntley. That's kind of the way I'm leaning. And I forgot to mention Zacchaeus has been going off at he's 4,600. He might be worth a look too.
Yeah. Moody, who you playing on the tight end market?
Well, I've played Cheah for like 3 straight weeks. I think I'm going to stay away from him this week, but he is someone I would take a look at. He's been very consistent. He's getting over 6+ targets the last 3 weeks, and he's a talented young man. But I'm going with the guy that I've played twice this year, and he's been so good to me the 2 times I've played him. It's Kyle Pitts against Carolina. He's 4K, and with Penix in at quarterback, we've seen him looking his way, especially in the red zone. We saw the touchdown
on 4th
at the end of the game the other day. Oh, yeah, that was a hell of a throw, by the way. Yeah. One of the best throws I've seen all season. I mean, Penix has an absolute laser beam. He threaded that in there, and then sometimes he's going to miss some passes. But There's some risk there, no doubt. We've seen Kyle Pitts fall flat many a times, but I love Kyle Pitts. He had a chance to score a touchdown 2 weeks ago. He fumbled it away. So I think if he plays a good, consistent game right here at 4K, I think Kyle Pitts is a really, really strong play against Carolina.
Okay. I think Bowers is if you have the money for it, $6,600. He's just an unstoppable weapon. I like the Zach Ertz play for the incentives. We'll see if he gets them. One name I want to put on everybody's radar: $2,800. Devin Culp. He's a tight end out of Washington. He got his first real targets this past week. 3 catches, 52 yards on 4 targets. I think if this game gets out of hand, you could see him have a very big second half, but he could even have a big first half because the guy who's backing up, Cade Otton, who I'd be surprised if he played this week. He's nursing an injury, but he's questionable at this point. Payne Durham, who is a big body tight end, had a nice game. He's also a little bit banged up. So we could see some big action for Devin Culp. $2,800. I think he's absolutely worth every penny of that. He's a potential option if you wanted to, go with a Bowers or a Zach Ertz. You could flex Culp and you could spend on other positions. So he's a guy to watch out for this week in the tight end market. Defenses. We start with the Bucks, 3,600. Chargers 3,500, Packers 3,400. We go down by hundreds after that. You can go all the way down to the Saints at $2,200. Mintzy, we're going on defense.
I went Broncos 3K against Wentz and whatever's out there for KC. KC's O-line's not great, and Wentz isn't very mobile. Yep. And the Broncos are playing for a lot, and Wentz is not, historically there have been turnovers before.
Yeah. Moody, who you got on defense?
I do agree on the Broncos at 3K. I don't know if I'm going to have 3K left to spend, so I'm looking at the Giants at 2,400 against a Philadelphia team that's expected to rest all of their starters. Kenny Pickett is a guy that's thrown some interceptions before as well, especially with him not having A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith out there on the field. I think he could be in line for a tough game against a very mediocre Giants defense, but I think the Giants have a good chance here to maybe turn the ball over 1 or 2 times. So the Giants at 2,400 is probably where I'm going just to save the cash.
Yeah, looking like Tanner McKee may actually start in that game too, which that doesn't hurt you. He barely played, so I don't think that hurts your logic.
Yeah, this week's going to be so wonky. I think you could get, Giants 2,400. I think is certainly an option. Depending on who starts Jacksonville, if Flacco starts, he has put up numbers on offense. He is a turnover machine as well. Take a look at all, but the Bucs at 3,600 I think are the best option. But this is going to be a wonky week, so you could certainly see. I would not be surprised at all if you saw the Giants be the top scoring defense in DFS this week. All right, last segment, plant your flag guy of the week. This is a guy you're putting in every fantasy lineup no matter what. Mintzy, who you got?
I'm going Brian Thomas. I've seen enough. I just can't get this Indy game out of my head of what Malik Neighbors and Drew Lock scoring 45 points last week. It's an indoor game. Thomas is just on freaking fire, and I think this is another over 100 in a touchdown game. And I know 7,300 is high, but I still don't think it's high enough.
Yeah. Moody, who you got?
Blake Corum is a guy that will be in all of my lineups, but I'm not going to go there because I have a feeling that maybe you're headed there. I don't know for sure. I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts at 4K. I think this is a prime spot for Kyle Pitts to have a pop-off game against Carolina. I see this being a spot where he's going to be 5, 6, 7 catches, maybe 100 yards because he's got that breakaway speed. I love him at 4K. I think $4,000 is a really good price for a guy that I have a feeling he's popping off against Carolina. I like Kyle Pitts this week at 4K.
I could give you an hour, and you're probably not going to get my plant your flag guy of the week. We're going with a second-year guy out of Georgia, 7th round pick for the Seattle Seahawks, Kenny McIntosh.
All right.
$4,400. This guy was great last week, and he's been good the past couple weeks. Last week, 7 carries, 46 yards. A couple weeks ago, 7 carries, 38 yards. Not a big receiving threat. He's got 3 catches for 22 yards in his past 4 weeks. But this is a guy, Kenneth Walker obviously banged up. Zach Charbonnet, banged up as well. Not the best up. He's been okay, but he could have certainly had a much better game against Chicago last week. Kenny McIntosh was a guy, if you're paying attention to Seahawks press conferences, which I am, The coaching staff has been very impressed with this guy. They want to give him more run. Kenny McIntosh at $4,400 is a steal. He's going to have a huge week this week. Kenny McIntosh is the guy.
Nice. I like it.
All right, that is it for Week 18 Fantasy Football Factory for the King of the South, Mintzy. For Moody, I am Stephen Cheah. Remember to sign up for the Pardon My Take award-winning listener DFS League. We'll hopefully see you in there. We all play. A bunch of the Pardon My Take guys are in there. A bunch of other people in the company are in there. So hopefully we see you there. And hopefully see you in the winner circle this Sunday. See you guys.
Happy New Year.